we're joined from Brussels by Mr. Nicholas Williams, former NATO official, and from Kiev, Mr. Ivanus, advisor at Ukraine National Center. Good evening to you both, gentlemen, and welcome to Think Tank. Let me start here with Mr. Williams. And Mr. Williams, with Russian jets crossing into Estonia and drones skimming Poland, was NATO's scramble a show of strength or a sign of surprise?
Yes, good evening, Mona. I think it was neither. NATO and the Supreme Allied Commander, that's the American commander in charge of NATO forces, did what he had to do, which is to track and eventually order the shooting down of some drones. But the problem for NATO is that, unlike in the Cold War, where you could foresee one big scenario and deter the possible attack by the Soviet Union, the Warsaw Pact, against Germany, the problem is that the possibilities of Russian incursions, Russian aggression are many more and varied. And so NATO cannot have complete control of its defense, and these incursions, whatever intent there is behind them, will continue, and dangerously so.
All right. Messieurs, Ukraine tries to strike deep into Samara and Saratov. Is this its defense, or a message that Russia's homeland is no longer safe?
Greetings to you, Mona, greetings to Mr. Nicholas, and greetings to our audience. Actually, Ukraine want to show to Russia that when you start the war, you should be ready that this war come to your land. That's why our strikes on Russian refineries, it's first of all signals that as long Russia will be in this war, as long Russian main part of the economy, its oil industry, will be under threat of damage like Ukrainian drones do. When Ukraine attacks Russian refineries, we make two main purposes. First purpose, the fact that Russian army received less fuel, but more important second one, Russia economy, as I said, mainly based on the income from oil. When Russia lost its opportunity to sell oil products, on the one hand, they give more oil to the global market, and that's why probably one of the main fear that it will be increased oil prices. It will not be increased oil prices because it will be more oil. But the second moment that Russia could produce less oil products and faced with a deficit of oil. I saw the map of Russian regions according to lack of fuel in this region and on the gasoline station. And the big part of Russia, mainly actually eastern one, now faced with enormous problems with oil. It means that Ukraine damaged Russia economy. And that experience of the First World War demonstrate that when your economy is not ready to see your country in war, you lose this war like Germany did it in the First World War. No one attacked Berlin, but Germany lose it. Why? Because they lost the economy. It's the same situation Ukraine do now with the main pillar of Russian economy. It's oil production, it's their refiners. Thank you, Mona.
Well, Mr. Williams, U.S. President Trump says big trouble, but stays silent on action. Does NATO still trust Washington's words when red lines blur?
No, unfortunately not. But who knows what President Trump is thinking and how he will jump in terms of opposing Putin or trying to accommodate Putin. So the Europeans don't trust him. But the arrangements in NATO with American troops, American forces, have not been changed despite the hesitations of President Trump, Defense Secretary Hegseth, nothing has changed as yet. And so the Supreme Allied Commander, as I said, the American commander commanding all the troops of NATO, its 32 members, is acting as he would have acted even if Trump wasn't there. So the Allies are banking on this American military Pentagon commitment to Europe, and is trying politically to persuade Trump that Putin is not to be trusted, and in fact Putin is taking Trump for a fool.
Mr. Ouz, Zelensky says no ceasefire, then sanctions. But if Trump shrugged, does Kiev have a plan B beyond Western promises?
You know, Mona, of course, you always should have plan B, plan C. Of course, we understand that Donald Trump is not ready to make a full swing pressure on Russia by sanctions. Nevertheless, he asked European Union to do some steps like he made against India. But everyone understands that Donald Trump wants Europe to impose additional custom fees, additional tariffs on China and India, like they do against India. But the target is not hitting Russia. The target is Trump's idea to change the global trade system. You know, several months ago, approximately in April, when Trump imposed his tariffs, it was a new term in the economic literature, so-called Mar-a-Lago Accord, meaning that Trump wants to change the global trade order. Trump wants to build so-called global trade order without the World Trade Organization. So, and the idea eliminates this organization or seriously modernize it. That's why he wants to use Europe, are using the argument of war of Russia against Ukraine in favor of changing this global trade. Of course, for Ukraine, it will be good if Europe made sanctions or imposed higher tariffs against countries that purchasing oil and some other resource from Russia. But whether it will be effective, we will see. Of course, it will be the most of yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The question here was: does Ukraine have a plan B?
So actually, I think that plan B in the situation when there will be no sanction, it's more military support. And Ukraine always said that we ask our partners to think for more engagement in this war, because we see the provocations that Russia constantly made. Because, you know, the same situation was in 2016 in Turkey. Turkey shut down Russia airplane. And when Russia said that, oh, we will respond to Turkey, the Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan immediately, according to Article number 4 of NATO, asked for consultation, and the partners of Turkey in NATO said, yes, it will be a joint response from NATO to Russia if Russia attacked Turkey. I think that as President of Czech Republic Pavel said today, actually NATO or European countries should shut down Russia airplanes, and then we will see whether Russia responds or no. So that's why I think, sorry, Mona, I think that it could be one of the plans of the future of this war if Russia really will repeat their provocation against Europe. The shutdown of Russian plane, as for me, can change reality. But I have a feeling that after that, Russia said, oh, sorry, we don't plan to do that, and forgot about that. But we don't see response, and we see constant Russian provocation. What will be the next after those planes? Hard to say, but we see Poland, we see Romania, now we see Estonia. So probably Finland or something, some other NATO country could be under NATO provocation. We will see how it influences on the course of events. Thank you, Mona.
But this is exactly why I asked you if you have Plan B, if Ukraine has Plan B, Mr. Ouz, beyond the European promises. We'll get back to you again. Let me here go to Mr. Williams. And Mr. Williams, Finland's president says backing Ukraine means being ready to fight Russia. So is NATO truly prepared for that cost?
I don't think so. NATO, as from the beginning, as an organization, as opposed to one or two members like the UK and France, who are very keen on confronting Russia, but as an organization, it's been very difficult to get consensus to escalate and to take measures directly risking escalation with Russia. But I'm afraid that as hesitant as NATO is in terms of trying to send messages to Moscow that their aggression is unacceptable, while not actually taking firm military action, as hesitant as NATO is, at one stage there will be a shooting down of a Russian aircraft or some direct action by NATO, which Moscow will not like. As Pavel said, President Pavel of the Czech Republic, countries are now thinking that, and Poland, for example, NATO must take a firmer view and firmer action in terms of defending its own airspace and its own interests.
Exactly. This is why Mr. Usa was asking the question, and so let me here reiterate the question in other ways. Finland warns security means readiness to fight Russia. But does Kiev believe Europe will truly stand shoulder to shoulder or just sell weapons?
You know, man, actually, in Ukraine, we have such a joke that we know that NATO, actually North America Treaty Organization. But in Ukraine, we joke that NATO means North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but now it's North Atlantic Timid Organization, meaning that it's organization that really have a fear to demonstrate force to Russia. And that's why we are not sure that NATO are ready to respond. As for Plan B, returning to previous question, of course, Ukraine should defend our independence, because we understand that final Russia target, it's elimination of Ukraine. Russia needs Ukraine as a source for war, actually, versus NATO. That's why we asking NATO to be part in this war, because if some countries in Europe think that, oh, let it will be in Ukraine and that will be done, you know, the history of the Second World War, the Munich Deal of 1938 demonstrates that if you don't stop aggressor in one point, the aggressor will be in the second point. So at that time, Czech Republic was, for me, a victim of that political games that the United Kingdom and France decided to give Sudet region to Germany. That's why for Czech Republic, it's more probably more high understanding of this problem, because they know what it is when someone sacrificed by your territory. Now,
do I take from your words that you're relying heavily on the European reaction or the NATO reactions or the US? This is what you're telling me here?
You know, man, of course, we understand that US demonstrated lack of will to react, because so many times I wasn't sure that Poland, that Romania, that Estonia asked US, so whether you will help to us. Furthermore, even after Donald Trump victory, he said a phrase that he not sure that he will defend Europe. Then, of course, he said, yes, we will do that. But I think that lack of belief to Donald Trump led to the situation when European countries in NATO afraid that in case of shutting down Russian airplane, US will help to them in conflict with Russia. That US will not stay behind and said, oh, it's not our problem. Because, you know, Second World War actually demonstrated an interesting moment. The United States of America waiting till the situations that happened in Hawaii in attacking of Pearl Harbor by Japan before December of 1941 and the Second World War. starts in September 1939, US kept silence. And now there is a fear that US will keep silence too. So they will not help immediately. And that is a fear that influence on policy of European countries. It's my own opinion, probably I'm not correct. But really, Ukraine understand that US not giving a signal. That's why Europe is not so ready to start a conflict with Russia, and that's why we rely first of all on our military forces, on the fact that we still will have support from our partners, and we thank them to them that this new program that Donald Trump actually made, that he sell weapon to Europe and Europe give this weapon to Ukraine, that at least that program can at least guarantee that we are not lose so fast, but if not to lose but to win this war. I think that we really need more engagement of NATO countries and the materialization of Emmanuel Macron idea that European armies could be in Ukraine, but for that they need guarantees from the United States of America. Unfortunately, now I'm not sure that this guarantee will be, but at least this idea could be materialized and they could be on the ground. I mean, European forces could be on the ground if the US says that we will give you from support from air and by our intelligence information that we have. So I think that discussion go on, and we will see what next weeks give to us, and whether there will be more Russian provocation, and whether really it will respond to them, because that response could make not only at the such provocation, but even in the war of Russia against Ukraine. Thank you, Mona.
Well, so we have to discuss here the matter of Europe and NATO and the US just fulfilling your needs of weapons, and whether that would be enough, and how would that be in favor, or to who would that be in favor for? Let me here go to Mr. Williams, and Mr. Williams' Article 5 hangs in the balance. Now, after flying over Estonia, does Moscow believe NATO will hesitate or hold firm? What do you think here the Russian thoughts or strategy, or what do they think?
Well, I think the Article 5 still has credibility. Ukraine is not a member of NATO, and so Article 5 cannot apply to it. And Article 5 is about an armed attack. If an armed attack occurs on one nation of one ally, then the other allies are obliged to act and react. These incursions by drones, by aircraft, are not entirely armed attacks. They could be armed attacks in the future. And so I think Russia would be very hesitant to engage in an armed attack against NATO. The interest of Russia is to keep NATO calm and not engage directly in this war, because Russia has too many problems, economic, military, even social, too many problems managing the war against Ukraine to cope with the direct entry into NATO by NATO. So yes,
but Mr. Nicholas here, this is the narratives of the European and the Western media, but not the narrative of the other side of Russia, who they say that their economy is stable. Yet,
yeah.
Also Europe is not in the best shape of its economy.
Yes, I agree. But just because it's a narrative of the Western media doesn't mean it's wrong. The Russian economy is in a war footing. They have difficulty in getting supplies and technological supplies, even with their relationship with China. And yes, Russia can continue, but you asked about Ukrainian Plan B. What is the Russian Plan B?
No, actually, I asked for the situation of all sides. Now, what I'm speaking about here is that Europe is in economic troubles exactly as Russia. And I'm not speaking about who is right and who's wrong. Reports usually contradicts. But what is important here is that this war, until when it will continue and to whose favor?
Well, yes, and I'm not denying that Europe has economic difficulties, but it's not yet in a war economy, and it's increasing its defense expenditure exponentially. And so what is the future? Who knows? But Europe is not about to give up on its support to Ukraine. The decisive question is, what will the United States do, and can the United States help?
Right.
And that's an open question.
Yes. Mr. Us, with NATO scrambling jets but not firing shots, do you fear they are managing the conflict, not ending it, and why?
So, of course, we understand that this managing conflict, in case it will be without US, will be extremely problematic, because one of the main problems in Europe that after the end of the Second World War, the function of European security, actually European countries based on the United States of America. And that's why when Donald Trump said that he withdrew US soldiers from Europe, of course, it was a big shock for Europe, especially taking into account some other statements that he will not defend Europe, or his, let's call it so, hint on the future of Greenland, the territory of the European Union country, Denmark. So, of course, it creates some threats. So that's why now, of course, we have something like a pause, I think, in this war, because the ideas that it could be meeting between direct meeting between Putin and Zelensky and get over the war, but we see no will from Putin to make this meeting, because Russia sure that they can win this war. Ukraine still think that we cannot lose this war. That's why now everyone's thinking the alternative actually visions what could be, but now I don't think that something could seriously change, at least in nearest weeks. Probably some, if Russia, as I said before, make more provocations, and the US said that, you know, that we support the response of Europe on that provocation, that we, as President Pavel said, that you should shut down this Russian airplane. If US said, okay, you should do that, that could change reality. Now we are not received such a hint from US. If it will be, it will change a lot. Now, I think that we still will have consultation. There will be UN meetings, and probably meetings when UN General Assembly will be. Probably after that meeting something could change, but I seriously don't think that those changes will be. So now we are watching for what's going on. We're watching for Russian economy, because I still make a bet on the problems in Russian economy. Is it more deeper than in Europe? I don't want to say that in Europe everything is perfect, but Europe economy is much stronger compared to Russian one, especially to enormous deficit. You know that as economist I constantly looking for.
This is not exactly what we are speaking about, but yes, obviously all sides now are waiting for the U.S. response towards this matter. I guess that was Mr. Ivanus, advisor at Ukrainian National Center, and Mr. Nicholas Williams, former NATO official. We thank you both, gentlemen, for your very special insights and your valuable discussions here.